Malaysia's forest city was once billed as a living paradise, a model of a luxurious, eco-friendly and smart city development.
Forest City back in 2016, we considered it as a forward-looking catalytic project that's an integrated tourism, healthcare, leisure, low-carbon city.
But the $100 billion mega housing project quickly turned into every investor's nightmare.
A lot of media has called this failed mega ghost town city.
Macam saya dulu, satu blok dulu ada mungkin menyala 2, 3, 4 rumah saja yang menyala.
Plans are now underway to revive and transform the troubled Forest City project. What will it take to revive Malaysia's infamous ghost town?
It's such a large project. I think it takes a long time, for a big township to be truly successful.
Forty-year-old entrepreneur He Kai was born and raised in Shanghai, China. But since 2019, he has chosen to make Malaysia his home.
来过马来西亚吃，我觉得那个时候对马来西亚，因为我说我小，那时候对马来西亚没有很大的印象，只知道有榴莲很好吃。然后后来19年的时候跟朋友过来的时候，就发现，就是你就自己能感觉得到嘛，就是那个时候的人的状态啊什么的。我觉得在这里我是比较喜欢这里了，包括吃的，还有空气啊，还有交通啊各方面。
He Kai lives in one of the most well-known developments in Malaysia, Forest City, a sprawling, eco-friendly metropolis in the south of the state of Johor. He owns 2 units here, which he intended to use as holiday homes and investments. He has since moved into one apartment permanently. Last March, he launched a company here to handle parcels for residents.
因为我本来就是这里的业主跟那个租户，因为每次我领包裹啊，觉得这边跟那个国内啊太麻烦，这边没有人管理，很乱。我每次领包裹都要领好久好久，所以然后正好有朋友找到我，他说有没有我们一起想个办法去解决这个问题。然后我说这个东西我以前会，所以我就决定自己搞一个。
But despite He Kai's fondness for his new home, Forest City has a notorious reputation. In the last few years, it's gained international attention as Malaysia's ghost town. Though He Kai disagrees with this depiction.
第一点，我在这边住，我知道这里有多好，就只不过那段是疫情刚刚过后之后呢，就是很多那种有可能负面消息太多，它的负面消息呢完全都是。 我60%、70%啊，全是假的，我觉得。
So, what is Forest City? It's a massive $100 billion high-end residential community project, a mix of luxurious apartments, commercial centres, malls, hotels, and industrial spaces. The project is jointly developed by a renowned Chinese developer, Country Garden, and Esplanade Danga 88. A local firm backed by the Johor state government and the Sultan of Johor. Strategically located at the southern tip of Johor, just next to Singapore, it's part of an ambitious plan to transform the state into an economic powerhouse. The project is also linked to the Belt and Road Initiative, or BRI, China's mega infrastructure and trade network.
The fact that there was a possibility of a very, very large investment from China that would help Malaysia to make sure it was part of that Belt and Road ecosystem.
The mega project spans over 20 square kilometres. Sustainability is a key feature, with renewable energy sources and water recycling systems.
It comprises 4 pieces of man-made island with a total reclamation land area of about 3,000 acres. Now, this is expected to be completed within 25 to 30 years. Now, this is something very important because a lot of people expect so much from this project and think that it is something to be developed over 5 to 10 years. It is not.
Once complete, the city is meant to accommodate around 700,000 people. At launch, its primary target were wealthy mainland Chinese buyers seeking high-end properties abroad.
The Forest City developers mentioned that if you purchase a housing unit there, you can actually have a residence status in Malaysia. And so if you have kids, your kids can enter into the international schools, which is part of the amenity provided by the Forest City. And this is a very attractive point to the Chinese buyers because you know that in China, kids face very fierce competition in the primary schools and the high schools because they have to take the college entrance exam. And the chance for getting into top schools is pretty small, I would say.
And so, at launch in 2014, Forest City generated a lot of buzz. By 2016, when construction was barely underway, around 18,000 units were already snapped up. Chinese buyers accounted for about 2/3 of these.
Investing overseas is a good way to diversify their investment, right? So we all know that you can never put all the eggs into one basket.
Many mainland Chinese want to get out of China and they want to move their capital and their wealth out of China because China is restrictive. Another reason is that if they have residence in more than one country, then there are tax advantages for that. If you're in a country for more than 6 months, you are a tax resident, you have to pay tax. So if they have residence in China, they have residence in Malaysia, and then they have residence somewhere else, that means that they can actually spend less than 6 months in each country, and they're not a tax resident.
But then, in 2019, the COVID-19 pandemic hit, causing the project to stall. Travel restrictions led to a significant decline in demand. 35-year-old businessman Muhammad Nizamuddin Zainuddin and his wife moved to Forest City just before the pandemic struck, having rented a unit there.
Macam saya dulu, satu blok dulu ada mungkin menyala 2, 3, 4 rumah aja yang menyala. Mungkin ghost town tu sebab salah satu sebab faktor dia sebab bangunan dia terbengkalai. Nampak macam terbengkalai. Kedua, banyak rumah tetapi tak ada penyewa yang duduk dalam Forest City ni lah.
Currently, only 1 out of 4 islands is completed. According to Country Garden's figures in 2023, about 9,000 people lived in Forest City, just over 1% of the full residential target. However, in the areas where construction is finished, Forest City feels like any other vibrant residential district.
Masa saya duduk, walaupun dia tak adalah abandoned sebenarnya, masa saya duduk for first tu, landscape dia punya facility semua masih terjaga sebab Forest City ni sangat menjaga landscape dia. Jadi abandoned mungkin orang nampak daripada segi tema dia lah. Tema dia Forest City, nampak bangunan-bangunan macam terbengkalai, bangunan tidak disewa apa semua, tapi dia ada. Daripada segi penjagaan memang saya rasa baguslah, cantik.
还有很多人，包括这边的租户啊，还有那个业主啊，所以我知道这里有多少人。真的是鬼城，我们大家都走了。
Of course, it's like any other business, there are some sectors will be badly affected by the pandemic. So I think property is one of them. For properties like Forest City, it will slowly recover, but it takes longer time.
And here, there could be good news for the distressed project. When Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim presented the government's budget last October, it included plans to reverse Forest City's fortunes.
Kerajaan telah meluluskan Forest City sebagai pulau bebas cukai bagi menyokong aktiviti pelancongan di ekonomi setempat.
But how did Forest City, once hailed as a model of Malaysia's modern urban vision, find itself in such a troubled state to begin with? Ninth May 2018, a momentous date in Malaysia's history. Former Prime Minister Dr. Mahathir Mohamad had led the opposition coalition Pakatan Harapan to a stunning victory in Malaysia's 14th general election. The 6-decade rule of the incumbent coalition, Barisan Nasional, was over. This was the first transfer of power to an opposition since Malaysia's independence from Britain in 1957. During the 2018 election campaign, the Forest City project became a lightning rod. Dr. Mahathir raised concerns about the project, saying it facilitated the large influx of mainland Chinese into Malaysia, and criticised the potential impact on sovereignty and Malay interests.
Mahathir, his style has always been isolationist, and the fact that this is a new residential area, new township, open up primarily for foreigners, I think ideologically Mahathir and I guess his supporters against this kind of development approach.
Tun Mahathir does have a reputation for being a very strong Malay nationalist, and he cares very much about that agenda. But in this case, some of the things that he was saying were actually true, which is to say there was no obvious impact in terms of creation of employment for Malaysians during the construction phase. That was certainly true. There's no obvious opportunity for Malaysians to buy these properties because the prices are too high.
At launch, the average apartment price of Forest City ranged from 570,000 Malaysian ringgit for a one-room apartment to 2.6 million Malaysian ringgit for a four-room apartment. For larger units, prices ranged from 4.8 to 14 million Malaysian ringgit. They seemed out of reach for the average Malaysian worker in Johor, who earned around 40,000 Malaysian ringgit annually. Mahathir's criticisms struck a chord with voters at a time when the ruling coalition was blamed for inequality and corruption. However, they also sparked concerns among potential investors in the Forest City project.
It's certainly true that the concerns that he raised did spook people. And I think he did it for that purpose, right? Because he was, before the election, he was interested in raising his profile, and this was part of his campaign.
Once in power as Prime Minister, Dr. Mahathir acted on his earlier threats. In September 2018, he declared that Chinese nationals would be barred from purchasing residential units in Forest City. He rescinded the sales ban about a week later, though he maintained that foreign buyers would not easily receive residency visas.
The previous government gave some negative comments about mainland China people owning freehold property, and that deterred a lot of investors from coming in, especially from China.
签证的问题也是我们这些过来生活、过来居住的这些人关注的最大的问题。首先，第一点，当初买房子的时候呢，这个当初政府答应我们的这种签证，对于签证方面各种条款，我们是也了解过的，对我们也是蛮友好的。这之后为什么会这样呢？其实我们大多数人啊都是有意见的。 因为这个关系到他在这边居住的时间和他的费用，还有包括很多限制问题。
Simultaneously, developments elsewhere would have a deeper impact on Forest City. In the later half of the 2010s, concerns over a property bubble in China were building.
I think the central government realized that there was overheated housing market, And in, I think, 2016, the President Xi Jinping mentioned that housing is for living, it's not for speculating. So I think, this was a turning point of China's housing market. And indeed, after 2016, there were rounds of cooling measures implemented in many cities in China, such as imposing home purchase restrictions.
President Xi's 2016 remarks came after there'd been over a decade of boom in the Chinese property sector. During this time, cheap credit was readily available to individuals and companies looking to purchase or build new homes. Meanwhile, buyers saw real estate as an attractive investment option. Property prices surged.
On average, the average housing price in China increased by about 200% from 2000 to 2013. But actually, the growth rate is totally different in different tiers of cities. So if it's in tier 1 or tier 2 cities, the housing price growth rate is much higher than tier 3 and tier 4 cities. In first tier cities in China, so for example in Beijing, from 2006 until 2019, the housing price increased by more than 12 times, meaning that the annual growth rate is super high. And for Shanghai and Shenzhen, from 2006 to 2019, the housing price increased by more than 6 times.
During this period, Chinese developers built over 100 billion square feet of residential real estate. Property developers borrowed aggressively, becoming heavily leveraged. They also undertook slews of projects overseas, like Forest City.
Many developers actually expand very aggressively because there is a competition in the land market, right? Because for urban land, it has limited supply, in particular for tier 1, tier 2 cities, right? So the developers have to compete with each other to bid for land, and so they do expect, they could quickly build up something and then move to another place to start new constructions.
Then in August of 2020, the hammer fell. The Chinese government enacted new financial regulations, placing limits on how much money individuals and large real estate firms could borrow. It also reduced how much developers were allowed to leverage. In totality, these measures hit China's real estate sector hard. In September 2021, Country Garden's rival, Evergrande, missed 2 offshore debt payments, totaling $131 million. This was its first default. By 2023, Evergrande racked up debts of more than $300 billion. Country Garden was in similar dire straits. The company's total liabilities at the end of June 2023 stood at almost $200 billion, including $16 billion in offshore debt. In October the same year, it missed a $15 million bond coupon repayment as it battled a liquidity crisis.
So this actually creates a high likelihood of default, right? And also it creates a lot of unfinished projects across China. So basically, even in Beijing, right? So there are, I think, at least 20, 30 projects that are not really completed.
The Chinese government simultaneously introduced capital controls to cap the amount of money that leaves the country.
For each individual, you are not allowed to convert more than 50,000 US dollars, equivalent to renminbi, into foreign currency per year, right? So if the enforcement on this exchange control is tightened, actually this makes the transfer of money more difficult, right, for buyers to invest in foreign properties.
So if they're looking overseas to create additional supply in the market, primarily for Chinese customers, then unfortunately the Chinese government put an end to that by putting restrictions on it.
China typically also affected by a pandemic, So they have to take care of their own before they look at other things, right? And that is a huge outflow of money at one point. But Chinese government is looking at how can they look at their own economic state before allowing such thing to continue. So they will impose some restriction for money to go offshore. So that slowed down the whole thing.
In particular, this impacted overseas projects that catered to Chinese buyers, like Forest City.
You must remember all this mainly Chinese investors, they bought their property here in cash. They do not get financing because it's difficult for them to get financing. And for them to bring out the total amount of money in cash is near impossible unless they park the money somewhere out of China.
A walk around Forest City shows how these headwinds have impacted the development. Currently, only 15% of the entire project has been completed.
Kalau daripada sunyi, memang sunyi. Memang kata kurang orang lah. Jadi untuk blok saya sendiri memang betul-betul kurang sebab rumah yang 2 bilik 2 tandas ni agak besar. Jadi kebanyakannya memang orang akan ambil unit yang kecil sebab waktu tu penyewa banyak ambil yang rumah-rumah kecil lah sebab harganya sangat murah.
But perhaps the worst is over. There are signs that the Chinese property market is stabilizing. And Malaysia's new Madani government, under Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim, is also more immigration and investment friendly.
After change of policy in 2018, after COVID, so investors were waiting whether that we are backing this project again. So they want to know whether the government, be it federal government or local or Johor state government, that we will honour what we promised to the world. We will honour our policy again.
Does Forest City still deserve its moniker as Malaysia's ghost town? And what plans are in place to revive it? Real estate agent Farizatul Hatima finds herself a lot busier these days. 3 years ago, she ventured into real estate part-time to earn some side income. That's when she saw an opportunity in Forest City.
Bermula daripada tu, saya tengok macam ada ke orang nak sewa rumah kat Forest City ni sebab tempat dia macam tak ramai orang. Sebab masa tu saya belum datang lagi dekat sini. So bila saya dah cebur dalam bidang ni dan saya mula buat, sebenarnya ramai yang hari-hari ada orang datang nak tengok rumah dekat sini. So saya start daripada banyak posting dekat platform media sosial macam Facebook, TikTok. So semua orang kenal saya sebagai Zatul Ema. So dekat situlah orang kenal saya sebagai ejen hartanah dekat Forest City.
Demand became so high that Farizatul eventually switched to full-time. One of her clients is 27-year-old insurance executive Wafa Aina Wahid. Just recently, she and her husband signed a lease to rent a 3-room apartment here in Forest City. They were attracted by the affordable rental price.
So basically, here I can easily get below 2,000 per month for an apartment with 2 bathrooms. But other places, maybe just a studio with the same price. So it's more, I would say, affordable compared to other places. Looking at the facilities, looking at the environment, looking at, everything here lah. When I view, I think it's not the ghost town that people actually be talking about lah.
Another reason is convenience. Her husband works and rents a place in Singapore, just across the border from Forest City. Wafa, on the other hand, lives in Kluang, Johor, but works in Johor Bahru. The commute to Johor Bahru town takes nearly 2 hours. Staying in Forest City would cut her daily commute by more than half and bring her closer to her husband.
Finally, I'm not going to do long-distance relationship with my husband. So that's why I'm so excited to move here with the opportunity that he get, which he can commute daily here.
For a supposed ghost town, signs of activity are everywhere in Forest City.
Ada pasal bad review pasal Forest City. Jadi sekarang bagi saya kalau orang dah tahu, orang dah datang sendiri, tengok dengan mata sendiri keadaan sini sangat ramai.
它的将来的潜力啊，不可估量，会有很大的发展空间。其他我觉得他们那些报道啊，不会影响到我个人的决定。
Today, if you go into Forest City, it's not exactly a ghost town. The locals are still patronizing the places there for their recreational purposes. So it is not really a ghost town, but the management has not addressed this issue very well by putting up a more positive narrative on the development and attraction of Forest City.
Perhaps the criticism to the project is the fact that it was built so fast, so soon, and it, I think, creates oversupply, perhaps oversupply of properties in the market. Maybe that was the cause of the criticism.
As occupancy in Forest City ticked up, businesses followed. Felix Lam used to work in KL, offering internet services to consumers. But he decided to relocate to Forest City to meet the growing demand for internet connectivity in the township. He also rents an apartment here at 1,500 Malaysian ringgit, or $336 a month for his staff.
有好多人都觉得这里还是很观望的态度，然后觉得这里能不能够成长，把他们事业带向成长。可是我看的东西不一样，我觉得 Forest City 他们虽然是起步的会比较慢，但是他们有很多他们的demand是很高，他们的要求requirement非常的高，所以的话，我们只要把服务做好的话，其实是没问题的。我是看到这一块。
So far, 30 condominium blocks have been completed in Phase 1, along with dozens of landed homes.
If you happen to have the chance to visit Forest City, it's getting better now. According to the latest, my engagement with the management of Forest City, there are currently about 15,000 to 20,000 people living on the island itself. That's forming a small community. More supermarkets, food outlets, daily products, shops, and are trying to open up in the area.
But this is just one side of Forest City. The sites for 3 of the 4 planned islands have yet to be reclaimed.
Initially, there were 4 islands. At the moment, only Island 1 was completed. So what I can say is it faced a lot of obstacles, challenges. The fact of the matter is those buildings are there. We don't want it to be an eyesore in Johor. And so we are trying what we can, giving them fiscal incentives, non-fiscal incentives, policy assistance to help to revive this project and to make it a success.
When you have that on such a scale, as you have in Forest City, there comes a point when the government can't just leave this huge area there to rot and to crumble, right? It's not just a waste of resources, it's a terrible shame that you have all of these units that are empty.
To revitalise Forest City, the government has designated it into a Special Financial Zone, or SFZ. The new initiative was officially announced in August last year. The goal is to breathe new life into the project by transforming the city into a hub for international capital.
Forest City, with its combination of a duty-free island within a special financial zone, presents a unique proposition as a catalyst for economic development in the southern region of Malaysia.
After so many years, we realized that in order to revive the confidence of people, be it Malaysians or international investors for this region, we think that we need to introduce a new concept into the islands or into the project itself, with the hope that to really give confidence to investors that the governments are fully backing this project again.
One plan turns Forest City into a destination for global family offices. The goal is to attract ultra-wealthy and high-net-worth individuals into the township.
A family office is when you start off a business, you accumulate your wealth, and the wealth sometimes grows into a certain extent where you need an office, concept. Like someone there as an administrator or maybe as an investment officer to see how to sort of optimize or maximize the wealth that the family has. So hence this concept of family office, came about.
In Malaysia, the single family office can be set up with a minimum of 30 million Malaysian ringgit, or $6.8 million in assets under management. It's significantly lower than the minimum required in Singapore, which is around $15 million.
Asia Pacific as a region as well is one of the high growth areas in the world. So there's a lot of wealth movements, and I don't think it's unreasonable for Malaysia to participate in trying to attract a part of that wealth transfer into its shores.
The rising wealth of the Asian, especially the wealthy family, is actually at a very high rate, like 20% per year, right? So this kind of growth, the growth actually has encouraged a setup of family office.
To attract the super rich, Malaysia has offered a 0% tax rate for family offices located in forest cities, SFZ.
The Malaysian corporate tax rate is 24%. Right, so 24%, 0%, I think is a no-brainer, for people to look at the single family office setup in forest city.
In October last year, Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim reaffirmed these additional incentives.
Pakej galakkan cukai bagi zon keuangan khas turut diumumkan bagi merancangkan aktiviti perkhidmatan keuangan, termasuk perniagaan global keuangan dan fintech. Skim pejabat keluarga tunggal telah diluncurkan untuk zon keuangan khas Forest City.
And there is another development that could favour Forest City: the new Johor-Singapore Special Economic Zone. Will it be the boost needed to reverse Forest City's fortunes? Or will the mega development remain Malaysia's white elephant? Malaysia's southern state of Johor has long harboured the aspiration of becoming the Shenzhen of Southeast Asia. Often referred to as China's Silicon Valley, Shenzhen is home to numerous tech giants such as Huawei and Tencent. It also serves as a hub for research and development in areas such as electronics, robotics, and AI. One key to its success is its strategic location, bordering the financial centre that is Hong Kong.
The special economic zone gave them a lot of flexibility in designing a more market-oriented policies. So they're always at the frontier of economic reforms in China. And also, Shenzhen is actually a city consisting of migrants. So they're very open up to migrants, and they have a lot of talent acquisition policies, which attract high human capital individuals to move to Shenzhen.
Like Shenzhen, Johor also borders a financial hub, Singapore. And further integration was realised on January the 7th this year. During the 11th Malaysia-Singapore Leaders Retreat, Malaysia and Singapore signed an agreement to establish the Johor-Singapore Special Economic Zone, otherwise known as JSSEZ. The Special Economic Zone spans Iskandar, Malaysia, and Pengerang in Johor, extending across 6 districts: Johor Bahru, Iskandar Puteri, Pasir Gudang, Pontian, Kulai, and Kota Tinggi. JSSEZ aims to improve cross-border trade and business ties between these 2 countries. At 3,500 square kilometres, the area is nearly twice the size of Shenzhen 4 times the size of Singapore.
Johor has land. Johor has abundance of labor. Many of the laborers or workers are now working in Singapore, but they can always play a role if there's seamless movement of people and goods in a new setting of SCZ. Some of the industries which wants to spread costs as well as bringing some jobs to Johor, and they will find it conducive. And both Johor and Singapore will also benefit from new investment that are relocating from elsewhere into this combined region.
Forest City is expected to fall within this grand plan. A proposal was made in August last year by the Johor state government to integrate Forest City, SFZ, into the Johor-Singapore Special Economic Zone.
If Johor-Singapore Economic Zone succeeds, there will be more people potentially moving into South Johor, working, even living here, living in South Johor. So Forest City being a ready-made township could attract some of these people to live there.
What Singapore has is an advanced logistics, financial, international trade hub kind of status. And we do realize that in Johor, what we can offer is talent pool, infrastructure, land, resources, and etc. Therefore, we think that with Forest City be included within part of the Johor-Singapore Special Economic Zone, Forest City itself may be able to complement part of the existing ecosystem within Singapore.
But with Forest City, things are not so straightforward. The project is still largely marketed at speculative buyers from China. For instance, according to the Finance Ministry, of the properties sold, 70% are purchased by Chinese investors. However, since the troubles in China's own property sector, the appetite among Chinese real estate investors has waned.
Now we actually see some slow recovery of overseas investment in real estate. So for example, in 2024, the total outbound investment in real estate is about $10 billion US dollars. But it's still less than half of the investment amount in 2016 to 2017. I'm not really sure whether they were able to recover back to the level in 2016 and 2017. Probably not.
They're still confident in China. So I believe China will come back. And China population is so huge. And internal demand itself can make them vibrant, can make them come back. And so long as what they need to do is actually stabilize the whole situation, and things will come back. It is just a matter of time.
At the same time, the megacity is less than 20% complete. Its beleaguered developer, Country Garden, is still mired in debt. With approximately $194 billion in total liabilities and a loss of more than 2/3 of its value last year, it's unclear if it can finish what it started. Country Garden declined Insight's request for comment.
Based on what is available in the public, it seems that the Country Garden might be challenging for them to continue the development in the Forest City, because they even have trouble in finishing some of the projects within mainland China.
Broadly, most of the developers, they are now looking for recovering stage, right? Credit is an issue, but now government is actually relaxing the credit and they make it more, for example, the borrowings actually more can be done. Today, compared to 2 years ago, it's so much better, and the policy now is relaxing. So things will recover slowly.
Country Garden is currently in talks with creditors to restructure some $16 billion in offshore debt, all to avoid liquidation. Last November, the developer said its Malaysian projects, including Forest City, are operating normally. But should Country Garden go bankrupt, who will complete the uncompleted Forest City project?
The government is not directly involved in the project itself, so we don't have any equity participation in the Forest City project. Therefore, we are not in that position at the moment.
There should be no government bailout of the project because it's on such a huge scale. Yeah, I mean, the government, of course, must support, but the best way for the government to support is to provide a deregulated, liberal environment where people can get access to the license to operate, and then they can make the choices. I think nobody in Malaysia would be happy to see government money taken from health, education, and social protection in order to bail out a failed Chinese property development.
The burden could fall on Forest City's co-developer, Esplanade Danga 88, Sendirian Berhad. The company is an affiliate of the state government, with the Sultan of Johor owning a 64.4% stake. Esplanade Danga 88 has a 40% share of Forest City.
Well, I believe the local partner, Esplanade Danga 88 Sendirian Berhad, will have to find other developers or joint venture partners to come in to develop. The main developer, Esplanade Danga 88, can become the master developer, bringing in people to complement for the remaining island 2, 3, and 4.
But new developers may not wish to undertake the original, ambitious plan.
I think whether the project should be expanded or not, it will have to depend on the demand. So it's best if the market decides whether the area should be expanded or it should remain as it is.
Without the Chinese, where this demand will come from is unclear. Though prices of homes in Forest City have come down since launch, they remain relatively high. The cheapest apartments here have a price per square foot above 550 Malaysian ringgit. In Johor Bahru, the median price per square foot is around 350 Malaysian ringgit.
The prices are affordable for foreigners, but the foreigners, because of regulations, can't buy. But the prices are too high for locals, so because of the price, the locals can't buy. And what that means is you have huge supply and no demand. Now, normally, the prices would come down, right? In the market, the prices would come down. But when you're so highly leveraged and have spent so much money, you can't really easily bring down the price of the units because then you're going to lose not just on individual units, but across tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of units.
Here, the revision to the Malaysia My Second Home program could expand the foreign buyer pool beyond the Chinese. MM2H, as it's known, is a golden visa program to facilitate long-term residence in Malaysia. Under the previous government, principal applicants had to park around 1 million Malaysian ringgit or $222,000 in a fixed deposit to attain a 5-year multiple entry visa. The current administration has reduced this to 675,000 Malaysian ringgit or $150,000.
We hope that with the current policy, MM2H will be able to help with foreign investors willing to consider to live in Forest City, and at the same time that we are trying to attract more locals to move to Forest City. At the moment, we do receive some inquiries, and it seems to be generating positive feedbacks at the moment, and banks are looking to set up their office within Forest Cities.
Forest City was envisioned as a futuristic metropolis, with soaring skyscrapers and breathtaking architecture. It could still be realised if the rejuvenation of Malaysia's ghost town is successful. For now, its stillness is a poignant reminder of what could have been.
We didn't expect COVID to hit us that hard. We didn't expect a lot of changes. But what we can do is we'll be very cautious going forward vis-a-vis foreign-led mega investment.
On paper, it is a very promising project. Decent township situated close to Singapore, but still part of Malaysia. So it has a lot of potential. So I think at this stage, we can describe that project as yet to realize its full potential.
For those who are currently living here, they're happy to call Forest City their home.
Selama mana yang saya mampu, kalau kata saya dapat miliki sebuah rumah di sini, saya akan terus duduk di sinilah.
住得蛮开心的。等到再过个几年，我准备带我家里人过来住。等我之后年纪大了老了不想干了，我就在这养老了。我就准备在这颐养天年。我觉得这边环境很好。